I'm back, and yes, I have a mic. And so, as you know, I'm doing like a storytelling kind of thing here, and I posted on my Instagram asking everyone to give me a topic on what to talk about, and something I was asked by someone was, where else have I worked? What I can remember, I've had like 15 other jobs. I had a big problem with authority. Okay, so job number one, Cold Stone. My sister helped me get a job there when I was 15, so I was actually working there illegally. Her boss liked her. He was a dick. Did her this favor to let me work for him at fucking Cold Stone. It was 2 weeks in, as a lot of my jobs are going to be. I'm working at the counter, and I'm working alone. And it's a hot day, and it's a busy day. And there's a long ass line, and it's going out the door, and I'm the only one on shift. And some dickhead asked me for a chocolate milkshake when I was trying to scoop the chocolate out of the chocolate ice cream out of the barrel. Somebody who was working before me had put it in the freezer too long. So it was hard to scoop out. It was really hard. My boss at the time then proceeds to come out and looks at me, and in front of a store full of customers line out the door, yells at me and says, "Give me that." He took the ice cream scooper and he started scooping the ice cream, and he couldn't scoop it. And then because it was frozen, and then he was like, "All of you guys are idiots, da da, fuck all of you, blah blah blah," just like cussing me out. And he was like, "Fuck you, fuck all of you guys," and he just like cussing me out. And he ends up finishing making the milkshake, and he hands it to me like aggressively, and he tells the customer it's on the house, and the customer was like, "Thank you." So my boss goes and stomps his little bitch ass to the back of the room, and I looked at the customer. I thought I didn't want to do this anymore, and I threw the milkshake at him, and I walked out of the store. The second job was at a call center. My boyfriend and I got the job together, and I mentioned that because it's part of why I got fired. It was like not even a month into working here, and I remember we got a phone call because it was like we didn't have to make cold calls, which is like calling out and trying to sell something to someone. I don't know. And this asshole calls, and he's like complaining about the product we were selling at the time, and he was getting mad at me because I was a fucking unfortunate one who answered his call, and he was taking it out on me. And then so I got angry and I started cussing him out on the phone. And the way like the call center was set up, we were all in like one room together. My boss at the time was standing there hearing me yell at this guy, and they could hear the phone call too, so they can like hear everything that's happening. He hangs up. He calls back. My boyfriend at the time ends up getting the call, and he's being so nice to him on the phone. Whatever. They got mad at how I handled it. I think they used that as a reason to fire my boyfriend at the time, because I don't think they liked him. Nobody really liked him. They said no relationships, no dating within the business. It was so. Anyways, my next job was at Kohl's. And when I was working at Kohl's, I remember at the time I ended up getting this really cool condo renting from somebody I knew. So I was like partying a lot. A lot of the times on my shifts, I remember I would be like in the jeans section and I would just be sleeping. One day I was called into work or into the office randomly by this other bitch. She was like my supervisor, and she was screaming at me. Like I wasn't even speaking back to her, and she was screaming at me, telling me how I was basically fired. My next job was at this deli, and I hadn't even worked there for a fucking week. Oh, like, okay, so Kohl's, I worked there for like 4 or 5 months. This job, I hadn't worked there for a week. It was like, no, 2 weeks. Probably like 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. And I kind of forgot what happened at the time. I forgot like what instigated me to going off on him, the guy who owned it and his wife. Um, but I remember like she was a fucking bitch. She was a bitch. And I remember when she was handing me my paycheck, she said something very bitchy to me. So then, in a deli full of people, I screamed across to her and her husband, and I was yelling at him though, and I was saying, "Put your bitch wife on a fucking leash. She's a fucking animal. She's a monster." I don't know what I said. I was just saying some horrible shit about her. And then I stormed out. The next place that I worked at was at a Halloween store. This job didn't end badly. It was like a seasonal job, hence a Halloween store. I remember though, I got my manager so faded. I smoked weed with him in the back room. And it was so funny the rest of the day when we were working. I remember he was making me crack up so hard. After this, I worked at a shoe store. And I remember when I quit this job, I worked there for like a few months. And when I quit the job, it was it was it was like a women's shoe store. And the the manager was so offended when I quit, but it was like kind of slow, and I felt like I wasn't getting paid as much as I should have, per usual. My first shift, I was closing the store with her, and I remember at closing she was telling me how she was married to some fireman and how she's like Jehovah's Witness and how her husband fists her all the time. So now she needs to take a break from getting fisted by him because she can't feel his dick. I was like I was like interesting for nice to meet you too. After this, I worked at a weed shop for what I would say would be like a few days. And these girls were like mean girls, and they had me do all like this shitty, like horrible parts of the job, had me go pick up lunch for everyone. It was like so annoying, and then they didn't give me a shift the next week. They were just such bitches. After this, I worked at Macy's for like a month. And one day at work during lunch, I just thought, I don't want to be here anymore. Fuck this place. And then I left during my lunch. Next, I did background acting. I was there for a few months. I ended up getting like a 3 month suspension because I was literally, I was 5 minutes late to set for American Horror Story. Yeah, they gave me a 3 month suspension because I was 5 minutes late after being in traffic, LA traffic in the morning for like 3 hours. The next job I had was at a weed shop again. I worked there for almost a year, and I remember one day my manager called me and he was like, "Don't go to work tomorrow." And I said, "Why?" And he said, basically, weed was being stolen from the shop, and it was like him and like some other girl that I worked with. Like, we were friends at the time, and they were stealing weed. She was like my supervisor, he was my manager, and I didn't know that. And so the bosses over there thought everyone, like they didn't know who to trust. So anyways, my manager said there was basically a shootout, and our security who worked at the shop was told to shoot at my manager when he was like, because they said the cops, it got pretty crazy, and he left running and was shot at. So he told me, don't go to work tomorrow because he didn't know what they would do to me. So I definitely never came back for my paycheck. And I remember I was supposed to get paid that next day. So that sucked. But yeah. And then I worked at Corner Bakery. I remember I was there for a couple months, and I remember I did this thing, this competition for like to be in Iggy Azalea's video. I didn't expect that I would like win. And I remember I asked my manager if I could go, and she said no. She was such a bitch. She was such a bitch. I remember one time I like dropped flour all over my shirt, and the uniforms there were black shirts. And I came in and I asked her if she had like a replacement, and she said no. And when I looked up above her, there was a bunch of folded black shirts. She was such a bitch. I don't know if I told her I was going to be in a music video. I think now looking back, if I said that, that was kind of not such a great idea. I don't remember. But um she said no anyways, and I ended up not going to the music video and working. And then I ended up quitting the day after. So I was so mad at myself for not going to the music video because I just quit the day after. It was so stupid. The other job I had after was at a weed shop again. This one I worked at for a long time, like over a year. I remember I got so mad when I was told, like, when I was getting my raise, I found out because I worked for like three Armo guys, and they were very sexist. Let's just say that. When I found out my that I got my raise, at the same time, I found out what this other employee who got hired literally the same day as me. Um, and I found out that he was getting paid more than me just because literally my boss told me himself that he was getting paid more because he was a guy and I was a girl. So I lost my shit. I have it written on my paper here. Like, I have little notes about what happened at work. All I wrote was lost my shit for this one. I lost my shit because I was working for them for like 6 days a week, 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. or whatever hours they ended up feeling like changing it to. And I was like, so I people would make jokes like cuz patients that came in made jokes that I lived there. That's how much I was working. Anyways, I lost my mind, and I remember screaming at them before, obviously quitting, getting paid in cash, and I ended up throwing all the money in their faces. And I remember after that, someone who was working that day told me that everybody in the shop, like all the customers or all the patients, security, all the employees, everyone in the waiting room got so quiet. Everyone was able to hear me screaming, and everybody was just listening, and they got quiet. And I don't remember. I remember just like seeing red. I don't remember what happened when I stormed out. I don't remember even like paying attention to who was there. I just remember quitting and leaving. Then I ended up working in Koreatown, which I ended up just like I worked there for like 2 years, and then I ended up just quitting because I got sick of it. And then I went into my last job as a porn star, and one other job that I just didn't include because really nothing happened there and it was like very short lived. These are all the jobs that I could at least remember clearly. I am not good having a manager or a boss. I think I'd do better being my own boss. Until next time.